Hi guys, my name is Philip and I'm a sports psychology consultant, and welcome to my channel, Psych-Pass, Shoot, Score. So if you're new here, this is a channel where I look into three topics: sports, anime and sports psychology. And so in this video today, what I'm going to be doing is ticking two of those boxes, sports and sports psychology. I'm going to be reviewing the first two episodes of a hyped docu-series within the basketball community, something that I'm sure we're all glad got moved from June to April that we can start watching, and that is The Last Dance. And that's detailing Michael Jordan's last season for the Chicago Bulls. And so what I'm going to be doing, just finished watching them, loved both episodes. I'm just going to be reviewing them kind of from a sports psychology perspective. So hope you enjoy it, and let's get straight into it. So the first thing that I found very interesting within the first two episodes of this docu-series was that MJ's mentality when going to the Bulls was very, very unique. He understood that he would be in a culture which wasn't that great, and he knew that he needed to kind of change this in order for them to become champions. But then the way he approached it and the method that he used was very interesting. So instead of using his words and just being very vocal in terms of that was his main approach to really change the culture, he more used actions and more let his performance do the talking rather than his words. Because he understood, being a rookie, he's not going to have a lot of respect compared to the veterans of the team. And how I kind of relate that within sports psychology is looking at the situation by focusing on your controllables. What can you kind of control in that situation? And I feel that MJ also looked at it like that, because even in episode 2, he was talking about how he has a mentality of a glass half full. So I feel what I kind of do with some athletes that I work with, I really like to try and get them to identify things that they can control, things that they can't control, and within those situations that they can't control, what they can do to kind of influence those situations. So for example, if they're in a match and one thing that they can't control is the opponent talking trash to them, within that situation, although they can't control that specifically, they can influence, however, how they respond to their trash talking. So whether they do good passing, whether they're in a good athletic position, whether they do good defense on the next play. So although they can't necessarily affect that uncontrollable situation entirely, there are situations in which that they can control. And I feel like that's what MJ really did, and that was kind of emphasized within that first part of that episode of how he really changed that culture through his actions. So I felt like that was very interesting within that culture within Chicago, and just the league in general, just really getting a grasp of the league back in the 80s and a bit of the 90s. And I just found that so interesting and how different the league is now compared to back then. Like, just for the whole example and the whole situation with MJ publicly endorsing Phil Jackson and wanting him to come back for multiple years for the Chicago Bulls, but then the organization basically just entirely rejecting that and telling Phil Jackson that this is going to be his last season. Like, could you imagine that in this day and age, if the best player LeBron publicly endorsed a coach, but then the organization then turned around and said what the Bulls did back in the 90s. Like, it's just crazy how the league was back then compared to how it is right now. And another area that I found very interesting was more towards in episode 2, which detailed a lot more about Scottie Pippen's situation and more about his situation off the court in his injury, as well as more organization-wise with his contract. And I feel like psychologically that had a major impact within the team, especially in the early stages of their season. And I feel like psychologically that impacted their level of team cohesion. And so team cohesion is basically the team's level of ability to psychologically stay focused on a task and on a set goal that the team has set. And their goal was, of course, to win a championship, and them being in a losing streak in the early stages of the season isn't great and isn't going to help them achieve that goal. And I feel Scottie Pippen's situation off the court, his contract, being asked to be traded, as well as his injury, that whole situation had such a massive negative impact on the psychology of the team. And you can tell that as they got into a losing streak. And I feel athletes within the team adopted one of two different mindsets. Either one of their best players isn't playing, so they're going to try and adopt more responsibility to showcase to their team, as well as to the league, that they're still a great team. or the second mindset, which is a state where if something goes wrong, they have something to blame, in Scottie Pippen not playing. And I feel MJ really adopted that first mindset of taking on more responsibility and trying to shoulder a lot more of the load to help them get out of that losing streak. But then that's one of the unique things about team cohesion. It's so dynamic and it's so fragile, in which it could be built up over many years, but then with the changing of one situation or the changing of a couple situations, it can really have a negative effect, not only on the psychology of the team but also on their physical performance. And that's kind of how them two interrelate. So it's going to be interesting to see in the later episodes when Scottie Pippen gets back from injury. It's going to be interesting to see the team's dynamic and team's cohesion. But that ends today's video. Thank you for watching. It's very unique to see basketball back at those times, and it's interesting to kind of see how much of an impact the organization plays, and it just gives you a lot of questions of what if. So what if the Bulls kind of stayed together for another season? Would they have beaten the Spurs in the next season, or would they have beaten the Lakers in the 2000s? It's just very unique to see these different variables and different factors behind the scenes and see how much they actually affect the team and their performance. And so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to be reacting and reviewing all the episodes leading up, and subscribe for more anime, sports and sports psychology content just like this.